Oh, and we're live. Let's see if anyone's gonna show up though. But
Hi everyone, or no one. Hi Zach.
hi. I think we'll just have a chat, you and me here. It's just gonna be us two then.
Sure, sounds good.
Yeah. So what were we saying? Something about. Uh, let's start with how you started with astrology, huh?
Sure, how I started with astrology. I guess my earliest memory is again when I was like 11 years old. And I was pushing, I think we got like some of these flyers on the street about an esoteric school that was near the house we were living on. And I was like, Mom, let's go there. And she was like, yeah, but I remember we couldn't find the house. And she was almost giving up. And I pushed and I pushed and I was like, no, we're going to find it. And we did. We did find it. And in the school, like, I learned many things. Many things happened. But one of them was retaking my astrology chart. I think it wasn't the first one, but it was like the more professional one. Like we sat with one person and he interpreted. I do remember being now interested in astrology from like, I don't know, the silly magazines and the newspapers. And I was just saying that to you, like I hated that because I was like, it's so stupid trying to fit the entire human population in 12 boxes. Like that's crazy. That's not even possible. And it was, and I heard all these studies like, you could demonstrate that astrology was just a bunch of crap, that people were just making things up. And it was at a point that you didn't really believe in astrology. It was just like nonsense. And when this chart was made, it was not much better from it, actually.
Oh no.
It was a bit more accurate, but it was still like, yeah, some things fit, some things doesn't. It doesn't feel right, and I'm pretty sure what you are telling me fits 80% of the population, right? Because it's so big.
A cold reading through astrology.
So it was better, but it was not much better. It wasn't until fairly recently, like 3, 4 years ago, through my like Wicca studies, I met two astrologers that were taking a course at the same school, and they were actually like astrology buffs and astrology teachers. And they were like, yeah, we're teaching a course. Do you want to take it? I'm like, sure. Like that would be amazing. And I think it was the second time they were teaching it, and it was the first time that it was like more like in a better structured way. It was like a 1 year plus plan, and like we were like the first serious generation they had, and I'm really proud of it. And that's when I started learning what astrology really was. And if it wasn't for them, I would still believe astrology is just a bunch of crap. But then I understand what I've been saying, and I think in a couple of videos where I mentioned when I'm pulling cards now for astrological zodiac signs, I say you are not one sign. I think we're a little bit better because people are realizing like, oh, I'm not just the sun. I have a moon sign and I have an ascending sign. So it's a bit better. But I even want to push it further because I'm like, everyone, no, each human being is a unique combination of the 12 signs. And that makes astrology like mathematical. And I love math. Like, I love math. So when I realized that astrology is actually fancy math with psychology, then I fell in love with it. Then I was like, oh, this clicks. I'm like, oh, this makes sense. And I was like a bunch of realistic, like realizing that a lot of what is wrong or like misleading at least. So yeah, that's when I think 3 or 4 years ago is when I really started embracing astrology.
Yeah, it's I guess I never really like gave it enough attention to even say it's not real or I don't believe in it. Maybe back then. I don't know. I think it's maybe because of my going to like a Christian school and like middle school and all that. I think being raised in a Christian world, it's like one, it's like no, astrology is bad, but it's like there's tons of like astrology that's implemented into like into the Bible and all that. You know, it's like, hello, follow a star and you'll find this the Son of God, you know, the Messiah born there, you know, that kind of stuff. uh
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, and there's like books on that that's like oh, astrology for Christians, and I'm like, I don't, should I, maybe, I'm like, let's get some basics down first. But yeah,
Um, Astrology for Christians, is that an oxymoron? But no, it is not.
it's like, no, it's
I
not
don't know.
really. It's like it's all over in the Bible. Let's see, what else is there. So it's like I'm sort of taking Benabel Wen's course on astrology. It's, I like it so far, I will say that. But I should be pacing myself a little better. Do you, which I should, but I don't like pacing myself. I want to get it done.
I don't know. It's like astrology is so complex. Like I took like 1 year course, and that was just like covering the basics, I think. And I I know a lot of people, like for you, like I admire the way that you learn from books and online courses, but I really need to be like, I learned when someone is telling me a story, I need a teacher, like a physical teacher. And even if when it's online, it's really, really hard for me if it's not like in person, like connecting. It's a bit better when it's like online live, like you're like at least at the same time. But when it's not even at the same time, it's really hard for me just to like, like be there and follow it. So, but in general, like that's not the easiest way for me to learn. So to have these two people know that were invested, know that were like eager researchers and practitioners of astrology, because they would like read more in books, and they would like do more and more charts for people, so they had a combined experience from knowledge and like reading for other people, like, oh yeah, I've seen this that combination, and in a number of people it meant this or something like that. No, so I don't know what I'm going to do with the pandemic, because how are you going to learn? But yeah, I mean, definitely no, with astrology as with everything, you can learn it from teachers, from books, from online courses. And Beneville, for sure, no, it's like one of the experts on astrology. No, I deeply admire like the knowledge she has, not on astrology, but in pretty much everything she does, right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, the only part that it's holding me, it's like I know that's not the way that I like best to learn something. But yeah, I'm deeply like, if you could take it and then teach it to me, I would pay you sick.
I think that's one of the things. It's like I was thinking about. I'm like, I need to learn it, but then also implement it and digest it, but also like you said, like discuss it. You know, have a discourse about it. You know, have a back and forth and arguments about it. You know, I think that's what helped. Learn tarot. It helped us learn tarot a bit better, I think. Maybe. For me, at least, I'd say. Growing up in the internet age, I think something like what we're doing right now might help you, Lucy, with, being like, despite, not the, physical, face-to-face conversations, but, at least we have this and and we message each other and all that, that could be there. That way of learning.
Definitely, like taking it with a group of people, no, when you can like comment or compare notes or do the assignments, no, and have a back and forth.
Yeah, it's with assignments, it's like I don't want to do homework. I just want to learn it all, memorize all the 12 signs, get a good grasp on them, and then slowly like reaffirming those memorizations through use
Hmm.
and through application and through, using it in like the real world or like in tarot or in reading people's charts or in looking at my own chart. But yeah, like you said, it's like people are more than just the sun sign. They're all that. Honestly, it's like they're all 12.
Exactly. Like you
It's
are
like
all 12. When they say like, oh, typical Aries, typical Libra, no, I'm using our sun signs. But I'm like, everyone has a bit of that. No, in a major or lesser proportion, but everyone has an Aries side of them, a Libra side of them. No, like when people say like, oh, I hate Capricorns. I'm gonna use Capricorns because Y is in the chat anyway. um, and it's not. It's like, well, that's a part of you that you are not comfortable with. And I'm also using Capricorn because, for example, my mother is Capricorn. So we have a fairly complicated relationship. And when you learn that, for example, like what is in the square with your sun sign, that actually is like triggering no more complicated relationships. And it's not a rule of thumb. It's not like, oh, yeah, if you're a Libra, you're going to have a tough time with Cancer and Capricorn like forever. That's not the case. Like I have Capricorns that were like super friends and super close. It's like it depends. No, it depends on much more. It's more. I think it's more complex. But what I do want to highlight from this is like when you start study astrology, and I think all courses will have this in common. And I don't know, you can confirm or deny this with Venable's course. Is like you start with your own birth chart, and that is such like a cornerstone, a basic piece, because it's wonderful to know you through like I don't know, through another lens. Like you literally can step out of yourself and see yourself because you're seeing all these representations that at the beginning maybe it doesn't make sense. I've heard people who said like, oh, it's like a bunch of symbols and numbers and it seems so complicated. And I mean, the more you get to know them, the more that makes sense for you, and that you start to pull those lines, those numbers, those symbols, and they're like magic, revelating their meaning. But when you start knowing yourself, I don't think many other like systems, like Tarot, Lenormand, or whatever, start with that. Start with you learn the system by learning to know yourself. It's so particular and like so universal at the same time. It's fascinating. Like it
yeah.
combines the psychology, the mythology, and you're like, oh yeah, this is why I am like this. No, oh, this is how I react to these situations like this. Oh yeah, this explains this, that, and then he's like, oh, ow, and you start like,
I was going through the course and I was reading on the houses, and that's one thing that I kind of have to like. That's when the houses are what I'm kind of having a little bit of trouble with, but I'm like getting a grasp of them and reading through them. It's like looking at my chart because, like you said, you look at your own chart. I'm looking at my chart. I'm reading hers, and every single time it's like when something isn't in the right, like in a good house, or it's like in a difficult place, I should say, and in something that I'd have to work through, and something I'm gonna have difficulty with in those houses. Everything lines up there, which is kind of interesting. It's like there's like no way to like randomize it a little bit more like tarot. If you have, you know, your I'm looking at it because I was realizing it's like, oh, it all like locks up a bit, in the chart when your birth chart. It's like if I think it's because it's like if a certain element sign is in a certain house, that's like it's kind of like in detriment there, and so it's like since they like are like opposite each other or like counterbalances and like it works with, you know what I mean? Like cardinal signs like work well with each other, or like all the fire signs work well with each other, but the negative houses, I'm trying to explain it but I can't without getting too into it.
it's totally what you say. It's like houses are like pick 12 of your best friends, and imagine their houses. And there are houses that you're more comfortable in and houses that you're not that comfortable in. But imagine different houses, no? Like one is super big and huge and it has a lot of comfy furniture, but maybe other one it's like a really good size, but the furniture is very strict and it's not really you. But for other people, that's more comfortable. So when you start seeing that now with the signs and the houses, you are like, oh, this sign is really comfortable in these houses. It's not so good in those other houses, and then it struggles in these others. So it's kind of like really no people and houses. It's a very good name for it because it's like how comfortable are you there?
Very true. Absolutely. But it's like, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of like um it's like if your third house, you're not doing well in that one, I believe like the one across it, the sixth house or the 12th, I can't remember which one, but it's one of the other houses is like, okay, you kind of get the gist of like, oh, that one is also going to be in fall or in detriment, with that house lineup. Without even knowing what it is. Going through, I've noticed I picked up on that. I'm like, let me guess, this is going to be bad.
Well, they're definitely complementary houses, no? Like if you picture the whale, and maybe we should have a chart or something.
Oh, we
You
should.
picture a whale, no? And you pick a sun, like the first house. No, the complementary house is gonna be the seventh house. So there's a
Mhm.
relationship there, no? That it's like a point on balance. They can be like, but it's funny because it can be like super agreeable or the opposite, no? Like,
Yeah.
and we said that with, for example, and the signs as well, no? You see that with Aries and Libra, like they're at the beginning, of each of the house, and they are very, very complementary, and at the same time, very, very opposite. So it's a funny relationship that you have with complementary houses and complementary signs. By
Yeah.
complementary, I mean that they are like 180 degrees apart or like exactly opposite at each other.
Yeah. I guess it's more like I'm having issues accepting the dog pile of like, this house isn't going to work out, and then this house also isn't going to work out. But I'm looking at the other houses, and I'm like, okay, at least that one's good. like, um, like I was reading up on like what she said about like my like on Scorpio and all that, and it's like, oh, interest in the occult, and I'm like, mm-hmm. Like that makes sense. But I'm currently I finished reading up on like Cancer. And I remember way back in the beginning of my YouTube journey, I would always have live streams with another YouTuber. She's not active as much anymore. Her name is Evie or Evelyn Wilkinson,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking, and we just like every now and then we like bring up we did not like cancers. Like, or rather her distaste for cancers, I should say, and I just like add on to it, just as like a back and forth. But reading up on cancers again, like just currently right now going through all the books that I got and reading through it on what they have to say on cancer, I'm like, oh yeah, you guys, like, any cancers in the room, are you guys okay?
Stop it. Remember, you have a Cancer part.
Yes, I do have a cancer part. It's all shell, but there's no meat inside. So
Yeah, Cancers being like the moms of the zodiac, it's yeah, it's an interesting sign for sure.
yeah, which kind of
Like
makes sense. It's
all of
like
them
there's
are.
that. Yeah, it's like there's that. It's the mother archetype, you
Yes.
know, and it's so it's like even if your mom is like a cold-blooded air sign, it's still that has a bit of that. It has that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess we'd have to I'd have to look that up. I'd have to look at like people's charts of like famous people with like infamously horrible mothers, I guess. And
Okay.
like look up their charts and be like, what's going on there? What happened in cancer to you? You
And now that you bring famous people, I do want to bring up a point here. No, because so you start learning with your chart, and then you start making sense of a lot of things. And I will say, like, for your birth chart, you need like your date of birth, no, like your date, month, year, but also like your location and
Mm-hmm.
your time of birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for most people, time of birth is not easy. Let's think that you actually were one of the lucky ones that your time was recorded in your birth certificate. Even that, and this is why I'm gonna make it personal now, because that's I think why it got so complicated for my like initial step into astrology, because my time of birth is wrong, and it makes sense that
Mm-hmm.
it's wrong. I already chat about like my birth not being so conventional, like I wasn't born at the hospital, so that's a little bit trickier. Like, well, what's
So,
the time that they actually register? Like, you don't know.
oh, okay. So like, oh, okay, okay. But it's
So
like
then,
you
yeah,
kind of have an idea though, like,
well,
right? Like it was like either like in the morning or in the middle of the day or the middle of the night.
yeah, you can have a sort of idea, and that helps. But sometimes, not especially when you're in between points,
Mhm.
like like many times, 1 hour or the other, it's not different. Like, oh, you're definitely falling in now in this chunk, so it's fine. But when you are like in like that close to the edge or the other, it's like those minutes can be important. Or
Mhm.
that hour
Mhm.
can be important.
Mhm.
And then you go and know through like time saving, daylight savings, time change, time zones, and all that. It gets a little bit tricky, you know. So I would say once you start working with it, if many things start not making sense, start adjusting your hour of or birth. Because that's what I did. That's what we were chatting with my astrologers. And like that's when like we made an adjustment, and boom, everything started falling into place. Like, oh yeah, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. And every box started like fitting correctly now, and it explained why so many times before when people were doing my chart, I was giving the wrong time of birth, not knowing that it was wrong, and it didn't really fit. It was like, yeah, some things are fine, but some others are like, man. No, so the specifics wouldn't fit, because astrology, yes, it can be really vague, you know, it can fit everyone in the world, but it can actually be very precise. But where you get precise, it's like you need to be precise as well. No, if you don't have your accurate time of birth, it's not really precise. And this is what it relates to the famous people, because I read, for example, I think two birth charts that are on a public site about Frida Kahlo. No, she's so famous now.
Mhm. An icon, yes.
An icon. So one was corrected, no, based one was with the public records of her date, time of birth, and one was actually adjusted with the actual happenings in her life. No, when she had the accident, when she was in relationships, when she was not in relationships, when she was struggling, no, with specific events in her life, and then they made that match actually with her chart. No,
Oh
and I
wow.
think that's called like adjusted time, adjusted through life or something. That's what you
Mm-hmm.
need to do. No, like look at the events on your life and then you adjust it. And I mean the time, once you have your like your date, that's gonna be fixed. The time is just like rotating the houses, no, that give you like the precise strokes, no, like the precise colors that your chart has. So that's when you start like adjusting, no, like twisting the wheel up and down so it actually fits, no, like you're pulling a sweater and then you're actually like, oh yeah, like the sleeves really fit, no, like you're going to a tailor and it's like, oh, it already fits, but like for it to be perfect, it has to be tailored, no,
Mm-hmm.
and you start tailoring with those events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like the houses the houses are so important. It's like I would look at like my like a certain like I just know that like, oh, my Mercury is in Taurus and I know like my moon is in Capricorn and all that. But then like once I saw that like, oh, but they're in these houses, and then like I took like just the vague like what she writes in her in this, and when she's like, oh, if this planet is in here, it means that this is going to be like this in their childhood. And I'm like, so she was stalking me. She knows my life. But it's like it really does matter knowing that. And it's like I think my dad doesn't know his time of birth. And so like one time I was going through my family's like birth charts as well, and like just to see what their ascendants were, but I don't think we were able to find out my dad's because because I don't think he was able to get his time of birth, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so Hermit of the Moon is asking about the book. It's the Astrology for Unbendable Scores, if you can show it again.
Oh yeah, this is the astrology course for beginners. It's the workbook. You can get this on her website. It's like a PDF. You just through PayPal, and then it's like, yeah, it's a whole thing. A little bit. It's a lot of downloading, but you know what? It's I think so far it's worth it. It's like a lot of work, but it's like you're kind of constructing something. And I will say it's really a course to get you working on an astrology grimoire, she says, or a journal. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with that.
Yeah, I'm also like, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go on.
But I was eyeing the chat, no, and what Mercurius said, no, that there are so many different house systems. Yeah,
oh yeah,
we were barely commenting on this, no, like we're talking about Western astrology, no, and like Western zodiac signs. But you have like the Chinese, the Vedic, different astrologies, and then if let's focus just on the Western one. Like there are different houses systems, and there's like back and forth on different things, and some associations are different, and like modern astrology, past astrology, how it has evolved. No, if you can, because you can get like some of the older books, and some of the things they say it sounds funny to us, no, because it's also how it has been evolved. And what I love to think about astrology, it's like reverse psychology, or not like, no, that's not what I mean. It's not reverse psychology. It's like, it's not that we are taking like a rule book and saying, oh no, this planet, Mars is anger, Venus is love, like Mercury is intelligence. No, it's not like a recipe and then we're adjusting. I think it's the opposite. I think it was studying the people, and then seeing how they were, and then seeing what was ruling them, that you start to reconstruct, but in what's the word for that? Like you're
like reverse engineering.
Exactly, reverse engineering it. So you're like looking at psychological characteristics, even physical characteristics, and then you're reverse engineering them to like mathematical description, with astrology of the person. And then you realize that if you actually start replicating that, certain patterns start to fit, and that's when you get like the predictive astrology, or just astrology, like to get to know yourself, and that's why when you do it, I think when you do it for the past, it's much, I think it's one of the most beautiful parts for me is to get to know it, get to know you, and then your family, and then your friends, and then like your close circle or someone, and then you can extend it from there. And sure, you can predict events and see stuff in the future if you want to. I don't use it like same as tarot. It's not really how I use it, but I know it's mainly used for that, or it was mainly used for that. I think we're having a switch now in everything. I don't know, in every, how do I want to say, like predictive system, that it's sort of being switching gears to more psychological and a self-learn for yourself approach. Like even with tarot, we see it more for self-reflection, for like deeper meaning, for shadow work, like much more the psychological part than the predictive part. And I think it's the same with astrology.
Yeah, it's definitely now a lot of things are being more used for looking at the outside of the here and the now. It's looking now looking deeper within and into our pasts, but also into the future, and like potentialities and the mysterious and the questions that we have. For sure. That's what like tarot and and astrology for sure. And I was thinking, I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking back to, one thing Benabel said, and like I think I don't know when she mentioned this. I feel like she mentioned it in a previous video, or maybe it was during the astrology course. I could be wrong. I have no idea. But she did mention like, like using astrology for larger social, uh, you know, social things happening. The like markets and the economy also like being like reflecting also like what's going on with like the planets and like what's going on with Neptune apparently, like with the previous like market crash back in like I think 2008. She said the same thing that was leading up to that is happening again,
Mm.
in current times, with like I think it was a year or two ago. She's like, yeah, the same thing's happening again, so get ready. I'm like, oh, let's go.
And I think that's beautiful. Mercurius is also mentioning, like the traditional and like the outer planets, the inner planets, but it's also historical. When Pluto was discovered and it enters astrology, into one of the 9 planets, and then it's like, oh, it's going out, it's going in, or whatever, in recent years. But if you go back to the time that Pluto was discovered, like look at what was happening in the world. We have a lot of wars.
It
Like
was like
that was
it was
a
like
war period.
Yeah, when was it? Like 1930s to the 1940s, somewhere around there?
Yeah, I think it was 1920 something. Let
Oh,
me like quickly Google when it was discovered. But yeah, and you can see like how, and I mean Pluto, like Hades, like the god of like the underworld,
hmm.
and how I don't know if the naming had to do with it was discovered in 1930s. No, so we're like right in the middle of like major wars in the planet. So it's like, yeah, it was discovered, and then you can absolutely see the impact that it's having. But I was gonna say like the same, no? Like it's not that because I don't think it's because I don't know. It's not because it was discovered that it caused it, and at the same time, yes. But
It
I
was
would
more
say
like it was more like the current environment highlighted its presence, maybe?
could be, yes, could be. But I
Like
would say, yeah,
like sort of like sort of like putting a small flame near a cloud of gas, it just suddenly explodes. It's like
yeah,
the flame is there, but it's like, you kind of maybe see it, and then it's like you put it in your gut, and then it suddenly like reveals itself, and you're like, oh wait,
I
sort of
think
like that maybe.
yeah, I think it's like the things that are always there, but you don't notice them until you have to notice them. No, like
Hmm.
someone tells you like, oh yeah, the number 21, whatever, no? And
Hmm.
you're like, but the number 21 was always there, no? And then you start seeing it everywhere. And it's not that it's new, it's just like you are ready at the time to see it, no? So at that time, the world was ready to see it, no? And
Hmm.
see what impact it was having. And just to clarify, note because you have a lot of systems and like variations on astrology, I will say take your life, take yourself and reverse engineer it. Whatever feels best for you, whatever fits best for you, you tailor your own astrology. So
Hmm.
just take that. Now, if one planetary system doesn't feel comfortable, if one house system doesn't feel comfortable, then switch it. And I don't
Hmm.
think it's about like who's wrong, who's right, who's better, who's bad. Like,
It's again, it's what works for you. Some people, it's like with
exactly,
tarot, some people like Marseille, some people vibe with, Rider Waite Smith, others with Thoth.
exactly.
The same thing, and it's like that's what I, again, to mention Benna Bowen's workbook, she does mention like the Placidius and the, what was it, the other one, the
Placidus and tropical, or
sidereal
no, sidereal. Okay.
sidereal
I say sidereal.
sidereal. How do you say it?
Sidereal.
Huh.
I don't know. I'm not an American
but then
person.
again but then again I'm someone that says Libra, so it's
I'm
starting
more
to sound wrong to me. I think that's a plus. It's starting to sound wrong to me. Libra.
Libra.
I've
Libra.
heard I've heard some people call it Libra or Libra.
I don't know. It's like, for example, Samhain, like Samhain, how it's spelled and how it's pronounced. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it has to do
It's
with something
Samhain.
Celtic. But if you read it exactly, it's Samhain. I say Samhain.
Sam Hain. It's Sam Hain.
But Samhain sounds cool to me. So I'm
It
going
does.
cool.
So just throw the W in there. Get that M out of there.
I don't know.
Who put that M in there? Who said this is how we should spell it? But yeah,
Because
speaking of, I see more curious mention whole sign houses, and I'm looking back at Sugar Honey Iced Tea's back previous comment about each of the houses being about 2 hours separate. I'm not sure if it's like that. The signs, I know there's some people that like make the signs spaces like in your chart like bigger and smaller, you
mhm.
know, and then like but I like whole sign because it just like rounds everything up, you know. It, like makes everything balanced and even and just says okay, it's like it's starting in this sign, but it's like let's be real, it's more in this, you know. It's, you know what I mean. It just makes sense. You're the one that told me that it's like even if it's like 1 degree into one house, that sign is in that house.
Oh, well, I want to comment to that because I was watching something about cost signs now, and if you're 21 degrees and if you're 1 degree, and again, now when you want to get this accurate, then if you are not like 100% sure, about your exact time and date, like time of birth, to the minute, and then to be absolutely sure that the program you are using is actually using the correct time back when then. No, because again, we have been through daylight savings, a lot of time changes, and it gets messier, as we go back in time.
And then like also like leap years and stuff.
Yeah. And now that I've been working, with like the nature aspect, like more of the my witchcraft, it's not that we really like. For example, you know, like Merry Yuletide to everyone. I'm really excited to be doing this in Yuletide. It's one of my favorite holidays to celebrate. But also, it's like it's not just today. No, the energy, like the sun. It's not like it rises. If you want to be precise, yeah, it rises at a specific minute and second, but like even the sunrise and the sunset that lasts through a period of time. Now you can see the light through a period of time. You can see like the subtle changes, in not only in day and night, but into like the seasons. It's not cut and dry. No, it's not like whew, one day you're spring, next time no you're summer, next time you're autumn. It's not really cut and dry. No, you can see
it's
like the
it's
mixture,
it's
the
the
influence.
spectrum. It's the spectrum.
Exactly. And I think that applies with the planets as well. It's not cut and dried in one house or the other. Like, yeah, for sure you are this or that, but you are definitely going to see influence from what's around you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
it works better for me. Like, what works better for me is to be flexible. Like, for example, I'm going to reveal, I usually don't like to reveal a lot of things of myself. And the more you learn astrology, the less you are like, oh, like shouting out your thanks to everyone because people
Mm-hmm.
start figuring you out. But for example, I'm a cusp, as someone was mentioning cusp. I'm a cusp as well between Libra and Scorpio. And a lot of things I resonate with Scorpio. And what hit me hard was I was having so many problems with Scorpios. Like at one point in my life, I was turning around and I had a problem with someone. And 90% of the time, it was a Scorpio. I'm like, what's going on? It's like, it's not possible. And then I realized it was because it was in me. It was in me, the Scorpio, that I was not accepting. And then my rising sign is also like my ascending. It's also a cusp. So that's also a little bit tricky and funny. And you can see people saying like, "Oh, there are no cusps. That's a lie." Other people say like, "Yes, there are cusps." I mean, I do think that when you are really close, to those lines that change houses, depending on your system, it's gonna fall into one or the other. So you work what's best for you, but I think it's important to consider what's around and if there's an influence or not. So for me, it works better to be flexible, not cut and dry. And people say like, "Oh, that's not mathematical. Or that's not accurate." And actually, it can be very mathematical, but it's not. It's not mathematics one-on-one. It's actually a bit more complex. When you have probability, then you have functions, and then you have to model how they behave. So one of my favorite statistics was Bayesian statistic. that it actually models things according to these families of distributions. So it's not like, oh yeah, you're gonna fall between 0 and 100. It's not like, oh no, like you're gonna fall into a distribution, and that's gonna have a variation and a flexibility, and it's very mathematical and it's very accurate, but it's accurate because it's flexible. So I love that actually.
For sure, there's always exceptions.
Yes.
It's like I'm thinking of that rule I before E, except after C. But then there's like tons of words that I've like. There's like quite a few, like 2 or 3 other words that I like saw that I'm like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like, but I'm like, but yeah, English is a ridiculous language sometimes.
All of them are. Don't worry.
I that's what I do like about like Spanish. It's like at least it's phonetic for the most part.
Yes.
There's still exceptions.
Exceptions are beautiful. I do.
Yeah, it's like I'm the exception. You know what? We should all just say to ourselves every morning, I'm the exception.
Yes, we're all unique.
Yeah, it's like I have a Venus in Gemini, but I'm the exception. I'm just kidding. No, I heard someone once say that they were like talking about like, oh, my Venus is in Gemini, so I really like. Girl, what is that?
It's street food they sell. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I was like, oh. Venus in Gemini, and there was somebody that said like they liked things to be symmetrical. They were like into like correspondences and associations as well, like in their occult studies. And I was like, I do too. That makes perfect sense. And I think, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, do have Venus in Gemini shelter.
Venus in Gemini. Yeah, I mean,
and I was reading up on Gemini, and it's like, because I'm going through the signs, so it was talking about how it's like yeah, everybody has those. Everybody is in a way two-faced, as unfortunate as that is, because it's like I'm this way with you, but with my sister and brother-in-law in the other room, it's like I'm a little different.
Definitely. We have many masks.
Yeah, it's like knowing to accept the dual aspects of yourself, or the multiple dual aspects of the self that people have. And I think that's again, everybody has all the 12 signs. People can't deny that they don't have Gemini. And I think that's where your sign Libra comes in and like balances the two.
Yeah, I mean, Libra can be a lot of balance, but it's also a lot of back and forth. I mean, there are definitely characteristics that are more obvious, I'm gonna say, no, in certain signs. Like, I can tell with, I guess, every Libra that I've met, that we just love to have the opposite argument. And I give this example, like you're thinking white, and I'm thinking white. But the minute you say white, I'm gonna say black. Just because I need to balance your opinion, I'm gonna put the other side. And I think this is excellent for lawyers, because you can actually argue both sides. But that's a very Libra thing. It's like sometimes let me make up my mind, make my decision, like write it on paper, and then we can chat about it. Because the minute you say it, it's very, very likely that I'm just gonna change it to have an argument, not to have a nasty argument, but just to have a point of discussion.
Yeah, it's very much like I think from what I gather, I always feel like they say that each sign has a quote. Libra is I balance, but I think a better quote for them would be, well, what about this, or but how about this?
Consider every other possibility.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, which I'm like, yeah. Sometimes you do, but I don't. I think my Mars, Sun, Aries kind of wants to say, you know, no. I'm too domineering maybe sometimes. But that's very internalized though. I don't like put it out maybe. I don't know. I don't know how open I am on that.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, we're looking at the chat, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
It's definitely, I mean, it's fun and complicated, and then it becomes, I think, very simple. And I think that's so beautiful, no? When you watch someone playing guitar, no? And they're playing the most complex solo that you can imagine. And when they can make it seem so easy, then you know you have mastered them, no? So I think
mm-hmm,
the minute you see astrology as something so simple, because it is simple, it's like look up the sky and there it is, no? And at the same time, it's very, very complex, no? Like, well, I need a telescope and I need all these instruments and I need all these blah, 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 blah.
mm-hmm,
And we have all these fancy programs that actually simplify a lot of things for me, for us, in general. But it's like I remember I haven't done this exercise that I actually want to do an astrology like by hand, without a
mm-hmm,
program, because like really really old school, like Greek Rome school, let's say it, and you have these square charts and all, like it's funny, no?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
yeah.
when you see the circle, there is the circle. It's like the infinite polygon, and it's like it's super complex now because it has infinite sides, and at the same time, it's so simple because it's a circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's yeah. There's like it's it's like this is the circle being so it's the symbol of infinity, and yet it's just a circle.
Yeah, it's so perfect. Now it's super complex and simple at the same time.
Yeah, it's the everything in the one nothing. How do we put that into, oh girl, we gonna hurt people's brains with getting into that.
Everything is like the world. No, the world is like everything, and then it's just like a new food. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's the world. Yes.
world.
There it is. Planet Earth, yeah. uh, let's see, what else? What else? What next? What now?
Well, I don't know. It's like,
I think, okay, here's one thing. You were saying about like doing it by hand, not using calculators, and sugar honey iced tea is like, the ephemeris, right? Is that how you pronounce that? Apps and the calculators that we have available to us. And I'm like, well, isn't the point of it is like the heavens as reflecting to our perspective of the earth? So yes, we do not live in a geocentric world, in a geocentric, system. It's the sun is the center of the solar system, obviously. But it's like, it's how it reflects onto where we are. We don't live on the sun. So what does it matter if, how the universe, or how the solar system, how the zodiac, looks on the perspective of, as if we were standing on the sun? What does it matter?
yeah, and I would say question everything. Right now, we are like 99% sure that the sun is the center of the solar
Mm-hmm.
system.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say
But
question everything, And again, as you say, like you
it's
were doing this chart for you. So it's like, where are you at? That's your center. Like if you were living in
mhm.
Venus, then take Venus and do it at a center. Like it doesn't really matter which planet it is.
Yeah, it's like when I think of like the term center of the world, and it's like this, the center of the world was like thought of as sacred space, and it's like, well, the center of the world could be anywhere on the globe because it's a sphere. And there is no like up and down in space. So it's like,
Yeah.
New Zealand could be viewed as the center of the world, or or somewhere else. I don't know. I'm trying to think of any random other place.
Any place, yes, any place.
Yeah, because it's a sphere, and it's like it's three-dimensional, and there's no like flat up down. You can be upside down but still be right side up in space.
Yeah, and also like space is again huge, complex, moving.
And we're moving. It's like the sun is flying through the Milky Way. It feels slow because it's such a vast
Doesn't
amount of
because
space,
you're moving with it.
so much space, and we're just like, as you orbit around the sun is also orbiting around the Milky
Yeah.
Way,
Yeah.
and it's like, girl, we're spinning and turning.
And the galaxy is spinning and turning, and the I don't know what is spinning.
And the Milky Way is also moving towards. I think we're moving towards the. I think it's the Andromeda galaxy.
I don't know. I know we're moving, but I don't know
Yeah,
towards.
I know, and eventually, I think like in like millions, probably billions of years, like probably even more than that, we're eventually gonna like merge the Andromeda. So that would bring like even more stars, you know, and that would drastically change, you know, the constellations, right? Don't you think that'd be weird? Oh wait, no, we're getting into other stuff. If we're even around at that time, you know.
Well, time is very complex, but let's also remember, like the sky that we're seeing, it's not the sky that it's like the
Oh yes, that's
stars
true.
are not really there. The stars, a lot of them are
They're
already gone.
very far. Yeah, it's like the constellation of Aries, like that. You know, those all those stars could be dead right now, and and it's like we're barely just seeing like the last rays of light. Think of it like a stream of water. It's like you drop it off of like a tall cliff. That stream of water is still like flowing down and still going down, you know, and only until like farther down does it disappear finally. That's kind of how it is with light traveling to Earth, I think. I think.
Yeah, and just to think, no, like at the same time those are dying, new ones are being born, and we're not even gonna see them, right? But they're actually right there, quote
Oh
unquote.
yeah, their light has yet to reach us. Yeah,
Yeah, and because of the
a new sign, a new star sign will appear one day.
yeah,
or it's like slowly stars appear between different constellations that will eventually like, you know, evolve and transform those constellations and synthesize them into new ones. Like apparently like people used to draw, you know, Libra with the scales, with a woman holding the scale. I think they, you know, for some, I think, you know, they were in like other times, but then they just started just drawing the scales. That's it. Sort of like that, or
well,
like,
yeah, Libra was part of the Scorpio constellation, and then it got separated.
yeah, it's like that. There's another one. I think. I don't know. Wait, you're the one. I keep forgetting to save this damn video. You always mention like there's like how many like in the ring of like the zodiac. There's like a bunch of other constellations. Oh, what was it like? There was one that was like 23 signs. I'm like, I want to see that.
21, which is very interesting, no, because 21 matches.
Oh yeah.
Well, 22, I think it matches, no, with the major arcana.
I mean, with 21, it's like okay, but like where the Earth, that would be the 22nd. You know, that as the Fool, maybe if you want to say, but also the world.
No,
I
no,
don't know. But yeah, you can be a little flexible with the 21, 20, and 22 there. You know, you just gotta like take some little, you know, creativity there. But yeah, but what was it? Where is that video? I need to find that video and save it, but later. Later.
yeah, it talks about that. I think it's 22 actually. 22 zodiac signs.
Okay. Okay. I have to. I'll look it up. I'll look it up later.
Yeah, Hermit of the Moon is bringing up like the flat earthers. It's so
that's the movie with Ellen Page, I think.
yeah. Jimmy Bacon wasn't one of his movies. I think there are two versions. Anyhow, but the flat earthers. The only thing I'm gonna give to them, it's like congrats on questioning, because I do think the basis of science is question everything. If you
For sure.
take something for granted, then you are not doing science.
Yeah, but then it's like, why do you think that? Because it's like a lot of anti-Semitic, you know, reasonings is for those conspiracy theories, unfortunately.
Yeah, like to spread lies and just create
chaos.
Like, yeah, that's not good.
And even if it's like unintentional, they think they're doing the right thing or something. There's like, yeah, it's like, yeah. I watched the documentary. I think it's on Netflix about the flat earthers, right?
I'm not sure.
I think it's called like "Where's the Curve?" I don't know if you saw it.
No.
It was like during the peak of like the curiosity of why is there a bunch of people thinking the Earth is flat right now, and now we're kind of like, let them think that.
I wish, I
And
wish
like the whole
they were questioning something, but it seems just like, I don't know, a bunch of people on social media following stuff they don't know. I was like, you need to question everything, but you need a hypothesis, and then you need strong basis to support it.
and you need evidence, and you need to record that evidence.
Yeah, and there's like so much evidence and experiments and just like obvious things that support that the Earth is actually round. Like you don't even need to be an astronaut to actually believe it. No, you just need to be on a boat to believe it. Like literally.
You just have to look at you have to be on a coastline and look at a ship coming into port.
Yeah,
you see it rise up out of it looks like it rises up out of the ocean. It's like, just because of the Earth.
It's very geometrical, no? Like the ancient Greeks knew about it. Because I think one of the false theories, and I think I haven't done proper research on this, but one of my friends was commenting like people think that, I don't know, like Galileo or something. No, they were like the first to believe like the Earth was not flat, but it's actually much more older than that. People already had notions that the Earth was not flat at all.
Absolutely.
So people were not stupid. Our ancient tribes were not stupid, and they also knew that it was round.
Yeah, one of the things that always like trips me out is like is like herbalism, like how it's like so old, how these plants were like known to be medicinal.
Yeah.
It's like, how did they figure that out? How did they learn that? How, did they like, what was it? Like, did they just like how did they pick up on that? Because I feel like it obviously wasn't like, I'll just try this plant. If it kills me, I'll live. And we know not to eat it later. I guess some of that played into it, but it's like, I'm sure there was like,
I think a lot of observation as well. This same friend of mine that is very like, I don't know, brainy or something. I don't know, brainy. He's very scientific. He was saying like, well, it was ridiculous that they thought the carrots were good for your eyes because they had the shape of the eye, or when you cut them, it seems like an eye. And he's like, that's just stupid, but it actually came to be true. And then he made another example saying like, well, the nuts, no? Like, people thought they were good for their brains because they look like a brain, and that's stupid. But it actually came true, and I'm like, I'm just gonna laugh because it's like, it's so simple, and it's very true. If you see a plant, a fruit, a vegetable out there, and it resembles a body organ, it's actually like super high probability that it's gonna help you to that organ.
It always has that one thing.
It's observation. Like, it's just observation, and people think it's not scientific at all, but it is.
It's like, in a way it kind of is. It's like, in a way it's like, as above so below kind of does apply.
Yes.
Even in the science world, in ways, just not as like as directly or as simple as you think.
Yeah, maybe there are a lot of counterexamples, but I mean, like the fruits that look like stars, and you can do a lot of associations there, and it turns into like magic and your like heritage and knowledge with these plants. Now, we also think that if you believe in reincarnation, then sort of the knowledge is kind of there, no? Kind of you're like reminding people about it, or you're reminding yourself about it, or remembering.
Right, something deep. That it's like, this feels like places you've never been to, but it just feels so familiar. Yeah. So that kind of got off topic, though. We were talking about astrology.
Yes, we went off topic.
But I mean, that's kind of the thing about that's. We went from astrology. Well, I mean, that's not too far of like a stretch, like astrology leading to flat Earth, because
it is a
planet. But yeah, I don't know where else to go with this.
I think we should wrap it up now, like in the 1 hour. Maybe someone has a question there. I don't think we were like really trying to explain anything. I think we're just like chatting about it.
Yeah, I didn't want to like. Yeah, I didn't want to make this an educational thing. Just here's what I learned so far, and here's something that I'm curious about, or or I want to talk about with, with Lucy here. I want to talk with someone about this.
Yeah, I'm not claiming to be like the super most knowledgeable person on astrology at all. No, it's just like, yeah, here's what I've learned so far, right? Here's where
Yeah,
I'm at in the path.
yeah. This is what I'm. Yeah, this is what I'm. This is what I think of it. This is my approach to it. This is why, I do support it. Would be a good word, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. Well, should we? I guess we'll wrap it up then. Should we? Should we pull a card? I don't want to pull a card, but I kind of want to because I already have a deck in my hand.
Is it an astrology deck?
Girl, I do. I have. I have Oracle of the Radiant stuff, but I don't want to use it because I'm not familiar
Why
enough.
not? Yeah, pull it
I'm
back
not.
to the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. Why not?
Okay, I guess since you ask so hard. Let's see.
Oh, sure.
Let's see.
I want to ask if you are enjoying astrology so far. Yes, I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
same here. I have to say, it's daunting. People always said it's like, oh, it's so complicated, and I always think it can't be that complicated. I think where it gets complicated is the various systems and knowing when to be specific in the system that you're using. I think because it's very easy for like other systems to bleed through into the system you're like following, I guess. So yeah, but I think once you get the basics down, you kind of get it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a complexity, becoming simple the more and more you know about it, and the more and more you can master it.
Mm-hmm. Traditional astrology gets too complicated. I mean, we'll see. I'm like, I thought all astrology was traditional astrology. No. No. Then we're getting into the conversation. It's traditional.
Yeah, what's traditional?
I'm like, was it the Egyptians or the Babylonians? Some people say it's the Egyptians. I'm like, girl. I'm like, everybody be looking up at that sky. They ain't got nothing better to do.
It was easier. Some people say like, oh, we're looking at the sky and we don't look at the depths of our oceans. But I'm like, well, it was easier to look at the sky and it was more, a lot of people on the same region are looking at the same sky, quote unquote. And then to look into the ocean, well, that's not easy at just like first glance.
Yeah, it's just a wall of blue.
Exactly.
And then something comes out of it and you're like, what the fuck?
And we have to imagine, how the sky was back when, because I mean, even nowadays, even if you're like in a super remote cabin in the woods, no near city to be close by, I imagine like thousands of years ago to look at the sky was so much clearer, like no pollution, and the atmosphere was different, and it was so much clearer and fantastic and mesmerizing to see the stars and the moon and the planets. It would have been amazing just to look at the sky. So I can see the fascination.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's like we all looked up at the same sky. What's so interesting is that like even in like Central America, they associated Mercury, or no. Well, I guess in a way. Well, no. Point is wait, no. I thought something, but no, I'm confusing it. But it's like you see these archetypal figures, as like Quetzalcoatl, I believe is that's how you pronounce. Yeah, I think I don't want to try again. Quetzi, I'll nickname it. I'm just kidding.
Quetzal.
Say it again.
Quetzal.
Quetzal.
Coatl.
Yeah. Quetzalcoatl. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. To get used to saying it, but he's essentially the same figure as Mercury or Hermes. if comparatively, or like also a Christ figure. It's like,
Yeah.
but also it's like he was associated to Venus as well, I think. So it's
Mm,
like they also had like their own planetary things, that associated to them. Like war gods were associated to Mars across multiple cultures, I believe. If I'm
yeah,
not
we can
mistaken.
remember that astrology is one in one with mythology, right? From the
Hmm.
names of the houses, the planets, the zodiac
Yeah.
signs, it's mythological. And we can see, common ground and a lot of common points between mythologies all across the world in even different periods, like the creation myths, and then the father, of the gods, and then some of the relationships they have. You can see that in Mayan astrology, in like the Incas, in the Egyptians, in the Greeks. It's fascinating, that they have these common points, like common threads.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That always that's always so fascinating.
it is. It is.
Oh, and like I think that matches up with what this card is.
Let's see. Detachment. What's that? Mercury in Aquarius. Nice.
Venus in Aquarius.
Oh, I thought it was Mercury.
Yeah, I thought too. I was like, oh, there's distance. No. But I think
Venus in
that's
Aquarius. Okay.
that kind of matched up with what we were just talking about. Like, you have the ship of like long, far journeys, but you see that it's like, all as distance as as far away as like, like I said, Central America is to Europe or Greece or the Mediterranean Sea, I guess that area. Um, you know, as far away as those two places are, they still have those similar connections.
Yeah, and I think it's a lovely card, no? I think I thought of
It's like,
Mercury as the head, but no,
right.
Venus just what Hermit of the Moon was asking, no? Like our love for knowledge, no? Your love
Mm-hmm.
for this sea of knowledge, for the fascination of it. And then to know that what they say, like if you see a flower, in the middle of a meadow, and then you cut it, then the flower is gonna die, like
Mm-hmm.
fairly quickly. But if you actually let it be, the flower is in a sense always there. So it's kind of like the knowledge that you don't try to possess, but just like to understand and to navigate with it. No, you don't try to possess the ocean. You want to be one with the ocean. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
like a beautiful parallel with knowledge and being in love with it.
Yeah. Be with, not to control.
Yes.
And in a way, you're not so much detached as you are connected in just a different way.
Yeah, and I think it reinforces a part of like us not affirming facts, but knowing our bases, knowing what works for us, and then being flexible to switch them if they need to be switched. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
like don't have any bases. No, I mean have a strong basis and be confident about it, but just don't be fixated like, oh, I'm right and everyone else is wrong, or this is the absolute truth and nothing will ever change. I think that's when it comes to detachment, no? Like the ocean comes and goes, and I think that's the knowledge, no? And we can see it like in so many archetypes of the tarot as well. It's an ocean that comes and goes. It's not fixated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we
Yeah.
can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's it. Yeah, we'll see if we'll do more of these. I don't know.
Well, we have the tarot to and T. Now I'm missing
that's
second. Sorry,
that's true.
way and
I'm
energy.
like I'm
I
like
have here, but we do miss our other two fellow friends.
that's true. We need to reconvene and see what is the next one we're gonna do. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I mean, like I've been doing. Well, I've done a reading with Y, and then
Mhm.
I did this with you. I think I should do one with Annika, but I don't know if she'll be up to it. I don't think she's going to want to. We'll see. We'll see. We'll talk about books maybe.
Exactly. Talk about books and beautiful books.
Yes. So yeah, thank you everyone for stopping by for this chat. Hopefully we'll do. Hopefully again, like I said, hopefully we'll do another one. Hopefully TerraTube and T will reconvene soon-ish.
Maybe next year.
We'll see. Yeah, in January we'll see. Fingers crossed. We'll aim for that. If not February. If not,
Somewhere.
we'll keep people in suspense like Frank Ocean and his albums. So yeah, thank you everyone for stopping by and watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Lucy, are you still active on your channel?
Not really. Just comment, like, and subscribe, Zach.
And if you're not subscribed to her, check out her channel anyway.
No need to check it. I'm not really active.
Just give her a few views, you know. What else? What else there's not really much you have planned, right?
Like around the channel? No?
Or like on social media or anything, right?
Yes, anything to stop social media. You shouldn't even be watching me. YouTube is bad for you.
Okay. You know what? I'll ask you later. I'll ask you later after I Okay, so yeah. Anyways, bye everyone.
Yes, happy Yule and happy end of 2020. May 2021 be so much better.
Or keep the changes coming.
Keep the changes coming.
Keep the changes coming 2021. I want you to be even messier than 2022. Than 2022. I'm already, girl, you know what? Time's an illusion. Be messier than 2022.
Exactly. Time's an illusion.
Okay. Bye everyone.
Ciao.